My wife took off her ring on a girls' weekend, so I made a decision she never saw coming. It started with a pair of earrings I didn't recognize. That's it. Just two little golden hoops tossed casually on our bathroom counter next to her perfume and a half-empty bottle of dry shampoo. But I knew she hadn't worn those the morning she left. And suddenly everything clicked. The muted tone in her voice before the trip. The overly cheerful goodbye. The way she said, "Don't wait up too late." Like I was a parent tucking in a teenager, not a husband seeing off his wife. My name's Caton. I'm not the guy who jumps to conclusions. I don't track her phone. I don't read her messages. I've spent years trying not to be the insecure husband who turns every silence into suspicion. But something about those earrings made my stomach twist. She left Friday morning for a girls-only getaway with two of her coworkers, art teachers apparently. Supposedly, I stayed behind like always, cleaned the house, watered her plants, even washed her car. I was going to surprise her when she got back, but surprise didn't come from me. It came from a guy named Devin. I barely remembered him. A friend of a friend type who moved to Denver 2 years ago randomly. He texted me Saturday night. "Hey, weird question. Is your wife in Boulder this weekend? Thought I saw her at this jazz bar near Pearl Street. She wasn't wearing a ring, so I didn't say hi. Pretty sure it was her, though." I read that message twice, 3 times. Then my eyes went to the bathroom again. Those unfamiliar earrings. I opened her Instagram. Nothing. No stories, no posts, no location tags. I checked her friend Kara's profile. Same silence. I felt that awful heat rise in my chest. You know the kind that tells you your world just cracked open, and the pieces haven't even finished falling yet. I didn't respond to Devin. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I opened my laptop instead. I started going through receipts, bank notifications, old messages. Not because I was looking for proof. Deep down, I already knew I was building something else. Something she wouldn't see coming. And I would do it quietly, the same way she took that ring off. When I tell you I didn't sleep that night, I mean, I didn't blink. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling like it had answers hidden in the plaster. My phone sat next to me on the nightstand, face down, as if turning it over might prevent more reality from leaking in. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was something worse. Still hopeful. Hopeful that maybe Devin was mistaken, that maybe she was wearing her ring on a chain, that maybe there was a logical reason for earrings I'd never seen before. But hope, as I was about to learn, is a fragile thing to carry when the person you're holding it for is already letting go. By morning, I had made my decision. No confrontation, no screaming. If she was hiding something, I wanted to see how deep the hole went, and more importantly, who else knew about it. So I started making calls, quiet ones. I called Devin back first, told him, "Yeah, that was her," and asked if he remembered anything else. His tone changed immediately, like he realized he might have just stepped into a minefield. But he talked, said she was sitting with some guy, younger L looking, sharp haircut, leather bracelet, said she touched his arm a lot and laughed too loudly, the way she used to laugh with me. Then I called Carrara's husband. We weren't close, but we'd spoken enough at couples' dinners for it not to be weird. I played dumb, said I was putting together a surprise and wanted to know where the girls were staying. He hesitated, then said, "Oh, they didn't mention the Airbnb. Thought they were at some vineyard place," which didn't match what Brina told me. A cabin outside the city, no Wi-Fi, just girl time. Piece by piece, it was crumbling, and still, I stayed quiet. Sunday night, she came home, walked in like nothing happened, hair perfect, tin shoulders, cheap souvenir mug in her hand. "Miss me?" she chirped. I nodded. My heart was pounding, but I just smiled like a fool. I even made her tea. She kicked off her shoes, plopped onto the couch, and asked me to rub her feet. I did. I actually did because I needed to see how far she would go pretending. Later, while she showered, I checked her overnight bag. Inside, stuffed under makeup wipes and a half-empty bottle of rose shampoo, was a receipt from a brunch spot in Boulder. 2 meals, 1 check. I snapped a photo of it, my hands barely steady. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in weeks. Kissed me like nothing was wrong. I kissed her back, but in my chest, something had already died. Not just trust, respect. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to accuse. I was going to build the exit she didn't know was coming. And it started the next morning with a visit to someone I never thought I'd turn to, a lawyer. The morning after she got back, I waited until she left for work before I even got out of bed. I heard her humming in the kitchen like she hadn't shattered something sacred 2 days prior. When the door finally shut and her car pulled out of the driveway, I sat up, rubbed my face, and stared at the wall for a long time. I wasn't stalling. I was mourning. Mourning the version of me who still believed the worst thing I'd ever have to deal with was forgetting our anniversary once or twice. That guy, he was gone. And in his place was someone calculating, silent, and weirdly calm. I made coffee not for comfort, but for strategy. Sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up my email. The message I sent to a local family law attorney was already sitting there in drafts. I'd written it at 2 a.m., changed it 3 times, hovered over the send button. Now I clicked it. No subject line, just, I need a consultation quietly. I didn't even give myself time to doubt it. I shut the laptop and grabbed a notebook from the drawer. In it, I started documenting everything. The earrings, the brunch receipt, Devin's text. Not just to keep track, but to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That the gaslight I'd been breathing in for years wasn't fresh air. It was real. That afternoon, the lawyer's assistant called. She was surprisingly gentle. Asked if I wanted a Zoom or in-person meeting. I chose in person. I needed to look someone in the eye and say it out loud. I think my wife is cheating on me, and I don't want her to see it coming when I walk away. I'll never forget the way the attorney, a woman named Meredith, looked at me when I said that. Not pity, not sympathy, just respect. Like she'd seen this story unfold 100 times, but still recognized how personal it felt to me. She asked questions, took notes, gave me options. I nodded at everything, barely hearing her voice, over the roar in my head. Then she said something that snapped me back into the room. If she doesn't suspect anything, that's your advantage. Don't let emotions rush this. I nodded. She was right. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about disentangling my finances, my dignity, my future. If Brina thought I was still asleep to what she'd done, she'd keep lying. And while she lied, I prepared. That night, I acted normal. She talked about her day. I asked if she wanted takeout. She curled up next to me on the couch while we watched a true crime show. The irony nearly choked me. I could feel her heartbeat through my shirt. I remember thinking, how can someone be so warm and so cold at the same time? Before bed, she leaned in and whispered, "Thanks for being so sweet this weekend." I needed that space. It really brought me back. I smiled, but deep down, something cruel flickered, because I was planning to give her all the space she needed permanently. The first true crack came on a Wednesday night. It was subtle, almost too easy to miss. But when you're looking for lies, you see shadows in broad daylight. Brena was on her laptop, supposedly working on a grant application for the gallery. I was doing dishes, trying to act like the scent of her new perfume didn't make my stomach turn. It wasn't the one I bought her last Christmas. It was something muskier, older, something she didn't wear for me. She stepped out of the room to take a call. "Kara," she mouthed, and I seized the moment. I walked to her laptop and tapped the spacebar. The screen flickered to life. No passwords, no lock screen. She trusted me that much. What she didn't expect was that I'd stopped trusting her. She had a tab open, Google Drive, a shared folder titled Asheville Weekend. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. At first, it was all innocent enough. Photos of wine glasses, spa robes, mountains. But then I saw him, a man wearing a slim black shirt, aviator sunglasses, and leaning a little too close to my wife in 3 different shots. The worst part, in one of the photos, her left hand rested on his shoulder. No ring, no tin line where it should have been. And her smile, it wasn't casual. It was soft, almost rehearsed, like she'd smiled at him that way before, like she wanted him to remember it. I quickly copied the link to my phone, emailed it to myself, and closed the tab just as she walked back in. I kept my back to her, pretending I was still drawing the same damn plate for 5 minutes straight. "Kara's being dramatic," she said, sighing. "Thinks her boyfriend's cheating again." Honestly, I don't get how people can lie so easily to someone they love. I nearly dropped the plate. I nodded, forcing the words out. "Yeah, I don't get it either." She walked past me and kissed my cheek, a light dismissive gesture, and went upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, frozen, staring at the empty spot where her mug had been. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness anymore, from certainty. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed beside her, listening to her breathe, and stared at the ceiling. I thought about that man's face, his sunglasses, his hand on her lower back. I wondered what his name was. I wondered how many weekends it had taken for him to mean more to her than I did. By morning, I had a plan. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to let her keep digging her own hole deeper and deeper until she was so far in that she'd be stunned when the floor gave out. I started forwarding more things to myself. Bank transactions, emails, call logs. I even installed a password-free keylogger on the home computer. Don't judge me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted evidence. I needed to know if she was still choosing him. And if she was, I needed her to prove it in her own words. But I wasn't ready for what I'd uncover. Because the next time she slipped, it wouldn't be in a folder. It would be live. It was supposed to be a regular Thursday. She left early, said she had an outreach breakfast for the gallery with a potential donor, some retired collector with deep pockets and a love for abstract art. She even dressed the part. Crisp blazer, muted lipstick, that specific outfit she always wore when she wanted to feel powerful but not too intimidating. She kissed me on the forehead while I was half asleep and said, "Don't forget to eat today, okay?" Like I was a child, not the husband she was actively deceiving. The moment the door closed, I was wide awake. I rolled over, pulled my phone from under the pillow, and opened the tracker. I hadn't told you this yet, but after finding that folder, I installed a silent location sharing app on her phone. I hated myself for it. Hated how sneaky I'd become. But when trust is already gone, paranoia fills the space it used to live in. And that morning, the app told me she wasn't headed toward the gallery. She was going west toward the city. Not a breakfast spot, not an art space, but a hotel. A very specific boutique hotel with rooftop dining and a bar that didn't open until noon. "Breakfast, please." I threw on jeans and a hoodie, trying to ignore the shaking in my hands. I wasn't sure what I was even planning to do. Catch her in the act? Confront her in public? No. I just needed confirmation. Real time. Undeniable confirmation. Something I could look back on and say, "You were right to stop pretending." I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest. The front lobby was all glass and brass, and I ducked behind one of the planters across the street. I waited. 20 minutes passed. Then she came out of the elevator with him. Same guy from the photos. Leather bracelet, smug walk like he thought the whole world was on his playlist. Brina walked beside him, her hand brushing his arm. Her face lit up with that same smile. The one I thought was just for me. They walked to the cafe around the corner and sat outside, sipping something, laughing too easily. She reached across the table at one point and touched his wrist. Intimate, thoughtless, natural. That's what hurt the most. How natural it looked, like they'd done it before. Like they'd been something before this. Or maybe I was just the thing she'd been doing in between. I took pictures not to share, not for blackmail, just for me. For when she'd inevitably lie again. For when I'd finally have to say it, I know. Then I left quietly. I didn't go home. I sat in my car 3 blocks down and stared at my phone for an hour. My mouth was dry. My brain felt like it was in a tunnel. I wasn't even angry. I was emptied out like she'd scooped something out of me I'd never get back. By the time I got home, she was already there, back in her sweats, pretending she'd had a long, boring breakfast. I asked how it went. She gave me the speech, talked about modern art, grants, timelines. I nodded. I didn't interrupt once. She smiled when she saw me listening, like she was proud of the version of me who still believed. But I wasn't him anymore, because now I had everything I needed. All that was left was timing. The strange thing about betrayal is how polite it forces you to become. I still made coffee for her in the morning. I still laughed at her half-baked jokes. I still folded her laundry and left it on the bed like some kind of invisible butler. She thought I was softening again, healing, maybe letting the stress melt now that her girl's weekend was over. She had no idea I was just giving her rope, and she was pulling it tighter every day. I decided to wait for one last slip-up, one last bold move. She couldn't walk back. I knew she was careful, but not careful enough. People who live double lives start to believe they're smarter than everyone else. And that's when they get sloppy. Friday night, while she scrolled her phone with that satisfied grin, probably texting him from 5 FT away, I brought up the idea of a weekend at her parents' lake house. Just me and her. She looked at me like I just offered her jury duty. I wish I could, she said, stretching dramatically. But we've got the spring showcase at the gallery. I have to be there early Sunday, maybe next month. I didn't argue. I nodded, said I understood, and asked if she wanted Thai for dinner. That night, I sent an email from a fake client account I'd made, requesting a private commission consultation with the gallery on Sunday morning. Her gallery didn't open on Sundays. And the moment she replied with, "We're closed that day. Can we do Monday instead?" I knew she had no event. She just needed the weekend free. I waited 2 days. Then I booked the lake house for myself and left her a note, taking your advice, giving myself space. She texted once, "You okay?" I said I was. She didn't push. I don't think she cared where I was. I think she just wanted to make sure I wouldn't be here. And that's when the real trap began. I left a small device in the living room behind the books. It looked like a charger. It wasn't. I installed a camera in the frame of a decorative sculpture pointed straight at the couch. Not because I wanted to see anything physical. I wasn't hoping for some big dramatic scene. I just wanted truth. And as much as it hurt to admit, I knew she'd bring him back the moment I left. She already had before. Why wouldn't she now? When I checked the footage that night from the lake house, my heart stopped. She wasn't alone. He came in through the side door like he'd done it 100 times, like he had a key or knew where we kept the spare. She handed him a drink before he even took his coat off. They sat close, whispered, laughed. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. It was what she said after he left that froze me. She walked into the kitchen, still smiling, and spoke to herself out loud. I only caught one sentence. Clear as day, he has no idea. He never will. I closed my laptop and I smiled because she was right. I had no idea how deep it went, but she had no idea what was coming next. I gave her one more week, one more stretch of silence, pretending like nothing had shifted, like I was still the same husband who couldn't see past his own shadow. I needed time to set everything in place. Finances, documents, the apartment I secretly leased under a different last name. I wanted a clean exit, not just dramatic, devastatingly clean. I didn't want her screaming or crying. I wanted her frozen, speechless, caught in her own theater with the lights suddenly turned on. The final act began with a dinner invitation. Friday night, I suggested we host a small meal at the house, just the two of us and a couple friends. I named people she hadn't seen in months, people outside her social circle, people she couldn't manipulate or spin narratives to. She hesitated but agreed. Probably assumed it was another sign I was softening again. She was already back to wearing her wedding ring full-time, almost like she thought it made up for what she'd done with her hands while it was off. The day of the dinner, I told her I'd do everything, the cooking, the cleaning, even setting the table. She laughed and said I was trying too hard. And maybe I was, but not in the way she thought. Because while she went shopping for wine and flowers, I finalized the emails, sent them all from an anonymous address I'd created weeks ago. Screenshots, video snippets, her words, her laughter, her little monologue in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. Each message ended with a simple line. If this is someone you know, maybe ask her where her ring went. I didn't send them to friends. I sent them to her people, her coworkers, her gallery director, her yoga instructor, even her younger brother, who once told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. I made sure to time them perfectly, all to arrive at 6:15 p.m., exactly 15 minutes after the dinner was supposed to start. She got ready like it was any other night. Casual but flawless, light makeup, flowing blouse. She even played our playlist on the speaker, the same one from our wedding dinner. Maybe she thought that music would settle my nerves. All it did was remind me of what she'd ruined without blinking. At 6:00, she asked if anyone had texted they were running late. I said no. At 6:12, she poured wine into the glasses and adjusted the napkins. At 6:16, her phone lit up. Then, again and again. One by one, they came in. A buzz, a chime, a vibration, a shift in her face that even she couldn't hide. Her smile dropped. Her shoulders stiffened. She picked up her phone, unlocked it slowly, and just stared at the screen like it had betrayed her before I even could. She didn't look up for 30 seconds, maybe more. When she finally did, her face was pale, jaw tight, wine glass trembling in her hand. "What did you do?" she whispered. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just said 6 words. "Tell me where your ring went." She didn't answer at first. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I watched her eyes scan the room like there might be some way to undo what had just happened, to push time backward or crawl out of the spotlight I dragged her into. But there was no exit. Not anymore. Everything was already out there in the inboxes of people who knew her best. Her carefully crafted version of our marriage was crumbling right in her hands, and all she could do was stare at the pieces. "I can explain," she said finally, her voice barely more than a breath. "It wasn't like that, Caton. I swear it got complicated." Complicated? That's the word she used to describe months of lying, secret meetups, and the decision to take off her wedding ring like it was just another accessory. I didn't interrupt her. I didn't need to. I simply stood, walked over to the table, picked up the glass of wine I'd poured for myself, and said quietly, "You're going to be just fine without me. You already practiced." Her face collapsed. For the first time in years, she didn't look composed. She looked lost, and I didn't feel pity. I felt peace. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed the bag I'd already packed, and left the keys on the counter. She didn't follow me. She didn't beg. She just stood in the doorway, one hand over her mouth, watching the man she thought would never leave actually do it. That was 6 months ago. I live in a small apartment now. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I started journaling again, picked up photography like I always meant to, and I've even started seeing someone new. Slowly, carefully, honestly, she knows everything, and somehow she's still here. Sometimes we laugh about how much healing can come when you finally choose yourself. As for Brina, I heard she moved to a different gallery. We haven't spoken since. I don't wish her harm, but I don't wish her back either. Because here's the truth. I spent so long being afraid to let go of the version of her I fell in love with. I didn't notice she let go of me a long time ago. The moment she slipped off that ring and smiled while doing it was the moment she freed me. She just didn't realize it until I stopped waiting for her to care.